All right, Krishna, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today we're diving into the 11th part of my series on the Sri Isopanisad. So this is the 11th part of the series, but because there is an invocation mantra, this is actually the 10th mantra of the series, plus that invocation that we started with at the beginning. Now, if this is your first time watching, I encourage you to go back and start from the beginning before diving in, because each verse is building upon the next in a sequence. So I'm going to go ahead and put the presentation up on the screen. Here we go. So, and I know it's been a little bit of a break in between these recordings, so thank you for your patience, and I'm really eager to dive back into this. Remember that the Upanishads are the ancient philosophical summaries and commentaries upon the Vedas. The Vedas are, of course, thought to be the divinely received, inspired texts that came down to the ancient seers and rishis. And then the philosophical commentaries upon those texts are called the Upanishads. And there's also a text that we've been drawing on from the tradition that are considered to be further elaborations upon the same teachings, such as the Bhagavad Gita and the Puranas. So we've been including some of the teachings from those books as supplement to each mantra of the Sri Isopanishad. The Sri Isopanishad is called the Upanishad of the Lord. Isha means Lord, and it was written in poetic verse. It consists of 18 verses, and today we're going to take a look at the 10th verse. Now, if you have the book by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, I recommend, you've heard me mention this enough by now, so we'll be following along with the Sri Isopanishad, reading it out loud together. So here we go. Oops, here we go. Mantra 10, if you'd like to read along with me. The wise have explained to us that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and it is said that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. So let's read it one more time together. The wise have explained to us that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and it is said that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. I want to read part of the commentary on this verse from Srila Prabhupada, the monk who brought Gaudiya Vaishnav Bhakti Yoga to the United States during the 1960s. Here's his commentary. There are innumerable suns occupying space with innumerable arrangements of planetary systems. We small creatures, as the infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are trying to dominate these unlimited planets by repeated birth and death, but are generally frustrated by old age and disease. Again, let's just read through that. There are innumerable suns occupying space with innumerable arrangements of planetary systems. We small creatures, as the infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are trying to dominate these unlimited planets by repeated birth and death, but are generally frustrated by old age and disease. So in his commentary here, he is illustrating what it is that we're doing when we try to pursue the culture of nescience versus the culture of knowledge. And this is actually a subtle verse. Nescience, of course, means darkness or ignorance, or in some cases, someone might describe it as illusion. But why is this contrast being drawn between, like, isn't it obvious that if we pursue knowledge versus darkness and illusion that, we'll get two different results? Yes, but what is specifically being talked about is a little bit, it's a little bit more specific than just, illusion versus truth or something like that. It sounds a little abstract, and we all just kind of go like, yeah, sign me up for truth, no thanks to illusion. So, for example, all of the knowledge on planet Earth that we humans have discovered or come up with or invented that has allowed for us to become more comfortable, materially speaking. Now, I'm not going to say that I don't like having air conditioning in my house, right? Or hospitals, or, a vaccine for polio, or whatever, whatever the case might be. But clearly, a lot of the direction in which we have taken the pursuit of knowledge has been in order to serve our self-interest. And along the way, we have tried to dominate others. So a lot of what we call progress and a lot of what we call knowledge are tied together in a paradigm of domination, of capitalism and so forth. And not that I'm free from it. We're just describing it. We're all enmeshed in it, right? And so here, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is drawing the distinction because this is what the Sri Isopanisad is getting at too, that there is a type of knowledge that we pursue in the world, that there's a type of status intellectually that we pursue, or there's a type of way in which we try to use knowledge in the world. And when we use it in order to further self-interest, oftentimes that means it's coming at the cost of dominating or trying to dominate someone else. However, ultimately, this way of trying to dominate the universe, nature, time and space, plunder it, and become intelligent so that we can have some very high throne to sit on full of opulence and, happiness. This kind of happiness, this is built upon a false kind of knowledge, and therefore the knowledge or the happiness last. And when we die, of course, we are born again and we start the process all over. And civilizations die, empires die, solar systems die. And so this is a frustrated process based on a misunderstanding about real happiness, and therefore an inappropriate understanding of what constitutes actual knowledge. So this is what that verse is actually getting at. It's not just saying there's one obtain, just stay away from illusion and cling to truth. Yes, but what is the culture? A culture of nescience versus a culture of real knowledge. That's what's at the heart of this verse. And let's go on to just what is meant by obtaining one result versus obtaining another result. In Bhakti Yoga, we don't say that the material energy, that the material universe is evil or bad. It's God's. The difference between whether or not our relationship with the material world, with nature, with the stuff of nature, is helping us to progress in our spiritual awakening, in the deepening of our love for Krishna, for God, has to do with how we're using it, why we're using it, where our heart is at, what is our motivation. So what we're doing and why we are doing it make the difference between a spiritual outcome, spiritual growth, spiritual progress, if we even want to call it progress. But think of deepening and opening a relationship with the divine. We are in a sense progressing in that journey. And so what's the difference between progressing in that journey and perpetuating karma? It has to do with what we're doing and why we're doing it, how we're using the things around us. Are we using things, manipulating things, taking things in order to gain some sense of dominance, self-interest, and so forth? When we try to gain and manipulate material things for the sake of having or gaining material results, we perpetuate karma. We get caught up in the wheel, which is torturous. When we use the world around us in service to Krishna, or in service to God and the awakening of the soul, and in service to loving others and serving their spiritual well-being, then we find the real purpose and meaning in all things, and we learn to use them appropriately. And learning how to use things appropriately with heart for the right meaning, for the right purpose, is how we engage in a culture of knowledge. So that is really important. And in Bhakti, how do we do that? Well, I mean, not like you should listen to me, but listening to talks like this, listening to people talk about God, listening to people talk about love, filling our ears with spiritual sound vibration, learning the sacred texts, and being with people, singing, dancing, having a home altar. All of the practices of Bhakti are meant to help us create a life that is circumambulating around remembrance, service, and devotion to God in the heart, in our emotional body. And then we know how to use the things in the world around us to feed into that circumambulation, that service. And that's called a culture of knowledge, because that relationship that we cultivate with the source is the thing that gives us real happiness, and hence gives us the intelligence that we need to know how to use everything around us in service, which then perpetuates the happiness. It becomes like lovers constantly competing with each other to make each other happier. We figure out more and more creative ways of using and engaging with the world around us, the elements of our fate and destiny, to serve God. And as a result, God just keeps spoiling us with amazing love. And then we want to do more, and then God does more. And it goes back and forth like that. And that's the culture of knowledge that this verse is talking about, and that Srila Prabhupada encouraged us to cultivate as students of Bhakti. So the Bhagavad Gita has a really interesting verse that sort of dovetails with this from the 13th chapter, which is one of the chapters that I'm reading every day right now. It goes like this: those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage and material nature, attain to this supreme goal. So if we know the difference between ourselves as spirit souls inhabiting a body and the body that we inhabit, and we also understand how to utilize this body and this world in service to our spiritual life, it's that knowledge, even if we don't do it perfectly, it's just that understanding and striving to live by that understanding that sets us free. And it happens more quickly than we think it does. So that's something that my guru always says. Finally, from the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have another great verse from the 3rd canto. Mystics and transcendentalists, by the mercy of the Lord, cross beyond nescience by ceasing all material desires. It is not possible, therefore, that the Supreme Lord can be favored by others. So it's actually really hard to love God and to be absorbed in a prayerful life, a life of devotion, unless we have understood that we can't serve two masters at the same time, as the Bible also says. That it's really difficult to serve our spiritual life and then try to run off and serve our selfish interests. Like, okay, I'm going to be spiritual right now, but then like after yoga class is done, I've just got to like run off and go to the bar and like go buy a bunch of stuff and get rich and try to be famous and, you know, whatever. So if we're trying to be spiritual and compartmentalize it over here, and in the meantime we are running off with all these desires that are not serving our spiritual awakening, that we can't actually love and serve God with that attitude. It will be too divisive. Now, that's not to say that it's not mixed up for some of us. Like, I know that I serve two masters right now. I've got one foot in both worlds. That's part of the process. But I also know that I know where my priority is, and very, very gradually, very slowly, because I'm very, I'm like a very fallen soul, as they say, trying to transfer my priorities to serving and loving God. And that's a slow process. That's why we need sadhana every day. That's why we need practice, and we have to associate with a culture of real spiritual knowledge about who we are and what actually brings us happiness. So it's slow. We have to be very forgiving of ourselves, remembering that God is very patient with us as well. And, but also know where the priority is and know what kind of culture we need to be surrounded by. So that's what I've got for today. I hope that this was helpful and uplifting. Please tell me how you're doing. I'd love to hear how your devotional life is going, whatever path you may be on. If there's any questions you have ever about Bhakti Yoga, please feel free to email me, info@nightlightastrology.com. I would love to hear from you. And also be sure to check out the Bhakti community. If you just go to, just look it up on Google. I'm just forgetting the URL off the top of my head, but it's the Bhakti community. It's a really great place to get plugged in for more information, which I sent out in my most recent newsletter as well. All right. Take care, everyone. Hare Krishna.